Is if we want to use public money in the best possible way against austerity, there are some things that do have to be cut. Comrade here mentions Trident a little while ago. I want to mention another one, HS2, which I think is quite important in this area. For those people who don't know about HS2, HS2 is a proposal for an extremely fast railway line that would be only for fat cats, because it's only fat cats that can afford it. That would, of course, create a few jobs. You can't spend 43 billion, which is what HS2 would cost, without creating a few jobs. But each of those jobs would come at a cost of £400,000. Believe it? Whereas a normal job creation programme creates jobs at a cost of around £32,000. This is important for us here in Coventry and Warwickshire. It's important because if HS2 goes ahead, Coventry will have a worse rail service. Coventry will be marginalised for future investment. So it is a local issue. Unfortunately, the fact is that some of the organisations behind the People's Assembly currently support HS2. And I would like us to be able to send a message to them that there are so many better ways of spending public money, not just on transport, but on all the other things we want, if we are really to be able to fight together for alternatives to austerity. So, don't give 43 billion to the fat cats, spend it on fighting austerity, stop HS2. Thank you very much.
I love my country that much that I spent 10 years in the army. While I was in the army under Margaret Thatcher, I had to buy some of my own kit because it wasn't supplied. When I ceased to serve, I spent 13 years as a nurse in the NHS. That was bad enough under Margaret Thatcher. What my comrades are suffering now with David Cameron, he's Maggie Thatcher with bells on. Now let us make no mistake, friends, the Tories are all in it together, with each other. And I can prove this to you. Under Margaret Thatcher, the prison service was privatised the way they're trying to massacre and rip the heart out of our NHS. It was privatised, all right. A member of her cabinet, Norman Fowler, and his company G4S got the contract to run our prisons. Not only did they run our prisons, they ran them into the ground. And I've got friends now who are prison officers. Some of them commit suicide, some of them resign, some of them finish early. The way they messed up the prison service, they're now trying to do it with other things. And let's not forget, the Tories are still all in it together, because G4S, still owned by Conservative Party bigwigs, got the contracts to do the security at the Olympic Games in London, and we all know what happened there, don't we? Not happy with that, they're now attacking the George Eliot Hospital. And make no mistake, if the George Eliot goes private, even under the next government, they will never ever be able to take it back because it's wicked. Once it's gone, it's gone. I'm disabled, and I will be standing there with you, sister, and supporting your fight to keep the George Eliot as part of the NHS. And I'd just like to say that I hadn't heard of this assembly before at all until my Labour Party colleagues told me about it, and we've come here in numbers tonight. Because we want to stand together with the Socialists. We want to stand together with the Green Party. We want to stand together with the community to ensure that this condemned government are shown the exit and the door kicks them in the backside when they're on the way out. Thank you.
Well, sisters, brothers, comrades and friends, my name is Dave Nellis from the Socialist Party, and I want to also welcome the organisation of tonight's meeting and those speakers who've come from outside. The fine, strident anti-austerity message that we've heard from this platform tonight has been excellent, and I think a lot of the contributions we've had so far have had the theme that we're going to have to rely on ourselves if we're going to fight these battles, that regretfully politicians, particularly politicians that have passed, are not doing as much of a service. We're going to have to look to our own campaigns, to our own resources, and it seems to me also that in a number of the criticisms that have been made, there's an overlapping agenda between the existing big parties, so that we heard a speaker from George Eliot Hospital rightly talking about the £20 billion of cuts that the Tories bringing in the NHS. How many of you know that in December 2009, a year before the general election, under the Labour government, Sir David Nicholson, the chief executive of the NHS, announced that £20 billion worth of cuts for this period. We heard about the bedroom tax, but the bedroom tax flowed seamlessly on from the changes that were brought in for private tenants in this city when they went through the reduction in the number of rooms they were allowed to have. Ed Miliband and Ed Balls are very clear. Whoever wins the election in 2015, Tory or Labour, the same austerity budget, at least for 2015, 2016, will be carried out. In fact, Rachel Reeves has gone even further. She says Labour's going to be tougher than the Tories on the welfare budget. Last Tuesday in the Council House, we had the annual budget meeting of Coventry City Council. £19 million worth of cuts were passed on to families in this city. The Tories were so pleased with the budget that Labour brought forward that Tim Sorden, former Lord Mayor, Conservative councillor, former leader of the Tory group, moved the Tories' alternative budget on Tuesday, and he proudly said it was less than 0.1% different than what Labour themselves had put forward. There is an overlapping agenda of 99.9% of austerity that says we have to pay for the casino activities of the banks. In fact, even though, as was said earlier on by Owen and by Darrell, that we nationalised the debt of the banks whilst leaving the private ownership of the profits, we nationalised 86% of the Royal Bank of Scotland. They're still getting millions of pounds of bonuses out of us, while our services, our youth clubs, our community care, especially care for the elderly, according to Councillor Damien Gannon, within 10 years in this city, we won't have any libraries. We won't have any community organisations or welfare agencies, because the council won't be able to stop them being cut unless we do something about it. This is the big question which really needs to be addressing, particularly for any new organisation that wants to organise in Coventry. What are we going to do on May the 22nd when councillors or candidates from all them three big parties responsible for the cuts austerity budget at the moment come to you and knock on your door and say, vote for me and give me £50,000 in pay and expenses over the next 4 years so I can go back on the council in order to carry out a cuts budget? What are we going to do about it? Well, the RMT, not the biggest union in the country, but it was the union that founded the Labour Party in 1900 as a society of railway servants, 4 years ago decided we need a new party in this country, something based on the organisations and the communities of working class people, something that will offer an agenda against austerity. So it was born. It's pretty big at the moment. It's called TUSC, the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition. Now, socialists have got a reasonable reputation in Coventry. We've been in recent council elections the third largest party in this city after Tories and Labour. But other places we know we don't do so well. We still did a by-election in Eastleigh last year. A railway candidate, Owen, tweeted immediately about the result of less than 1%. Didn't explain the candidate in Eastleigh in Hampshire on the day of the election was actually leading on a Thursday afternoon 1,200 people through the streets of Bootle in a protest against the bedroom tax. Once we start standing candidates alongside campaigns where people are fighting austerity, then out of our ranks we should find new MPs, new councillors who go into these positions not to carry out cuts on behalf of the millionaires, but to carry out policies on behalf of the millions. If that sort of thing interests you and you picked up the leaflet on your way in, come back in 3 weeks' time when we have our election launch in here on the 26th of March. Thanks for listening.
Sam Fairburn said the People's Assembly had an action plan, and really this leaflet that we put out in Coventry is our action plan for Coventry, if you want, for the next month really, which is activities for us to do to build on the ground. Because actually people in all sorts of political parties, and people don't necessarily agree with this, that or the other, but we're here because we all disagree with austerity. And when Owen Jones talked about we need hope, hope does not just come from ideas. Hope comes from seeing that there are people protesting and doing something against austerity. That's why whenever you participate in any of these activities, you will be giving other people watching it or hearing about it actually believe that there is a fight back going on and we can take part in that. And actually there is massive anger in this society, in this country, against austerity, and I think the colleagues who have spoken about the trade union movement, some of our leaders who've let slip, are correct. The public sector general strike in 2011, let's be frank, should have been the beginning of a major series of strikes, not the one-off end. That day people were very, very empowered by it in actual fact. But people should not believe that anger's gone away. There's a colleague I'm up, I don't know if he's gone home. I work for one of the major banks, and we had a branch, we had a branch meeting, a multi-branch meeting, which had 51 people at it. Those of you in the trade union movement will understand that's quite good. You probably think, well, that's a really well organised place, let's be clear about it. 30 of them came because they thought it was a mass meeting about job losses, but when they turned up, were too polite to leave. Right? And there was a motion there which called for the Unite, with members of Unite, that a Unite Policy Conference should organise a general strike in defence of the NHS. And the argument for that was quite simple. This is about money, everybody's put it there loud and clear. We'll stop austerity when it costs the ruling class more money to implement it than they're getting. When private sector companies lose money because people are out on strike to defend the NHS, they will tell the Tories to stop attacking the NHS. That's what needs to be done. Yeah. And we put that argument to 51 people who turned up to the branch meeting, and like I said, 30 of them were not the usual regulars, and it got a unanimous vote. Absolutely unanimous. A few questions here and there, but a unanimous vote. Yes, we think our union should call us, bank workers, out on strike along with the rest of the TUC to defend the NHS. That actually is what we've got to aim toward. I personally think the NHS is the issue which mobilises people because it's so important to us, that's my opinion. But actually it's our activity that will do it. Now we've had the forms going round, and I think hopefully everybody signed it in. We really need, it's what we do that will make this bigger. This has been a really good meeting. I think, you know, everybody's spoken really well, but we need to take it away and get involved in the activities that are there, every single activity that's down there. And if we can do it and bring people with us, we will build a bigger and bigger movement which will persuade our trade union leaders to stop excusing their surrenders and start to deliver support. So thank you very much for coming tonight, and please come towards People's Assembly.
Hello, my name is Robert Punton. I'm a member of the Park-like Area, but I'm also here representing the People's Assembly of Coventry. So we're here to show solidarity to what you're doing here in this city. I think it's amazing that in being Coventry 70 years ago, this city was blitzed by a fascist dictator. The only difference between that and now is the dictator who is trying to destroy all our cities is our own government and our own Prime Minister. We can only stand up and fight this together if we fight as one. And as everybody said, to leave our differences at the door and work on what unites us. So on behalf of Birmingham, solidarity to Coventry and Warwickshire, thank you.
We look forward to some joint work with Birmingham. I'm going to ask a colleague from, I think you're from Leamington, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And I know that they do a regular campaigning every week. So.
Hi there, hello. Okay, several things I wanted to bring up with Owen, but he's gone. But first thing, in Birmingham, last year, 42 people have been in hospital with malnutrition, up 400% since 2008. Now, I'd love to know the figures locally, but that is in the Birmingham area. Now, I wanted to pick up on some of Brother Owen's figures. It's in the front page of The Independent on the 24th of August 2012, the good paper that he writes for. There was a front page article saying the richest 10% in the country have gained by £380,000 each as a result of quantitative easing. Yes, so all the quantitative easing is doing is making rich people richer. I don't know if anyone was aware of that, but I wanted to bring it to the meeting so like, yeah, it's banking fraud, if not directly to the bankers, indirectly. Now, another thing that Owen brought up, 25 billion, he says, in tax evasion. This actually contradicts the Tax Justice Network, which says it's about £125 billion a year, and this breaks down as £70 billion fraud a year, 25 billion late payments, and 25 billion legal tax evasion. So that is bad as well. But also, there was a report at the end of last year just highlighting the depth and the level of financial fraud and financial mismanagement. The New Economics Foundation said in December that the banks are still being subsidised to the tune of £38 billion a year. Now that is shocking. And sometimes I think Owen tends to underplay his figures. He's a very good orator, and perhaps it's good that he's gone. But I did want to raise this and just to put another bit of perspective on it. But the Tax Justice Network is a very good organisation, and it's well worth reading their material. I thank you, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. And we've got another colleague from Warwickshire, so Pete, if you want to...
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jane. Yeah, Pete McLaren, Rugby Trade Union and Socialist Coalition, bringing our comradely greetings to the meeting tonight from Warwickshire. Just want to tell you very briefly about one campaign we've been involved in for the last 6 months in rugby, which sadly you will also all be involved in within the next 3 or 4 years. And then just make one comment about what Owen Jones had to say about the last speaker. I think it is very unfortunate that Owen had to go so early before any of the comments that we would hope he might have responded to. Right, in rugby we spent a lot of time campaigning against universal credit, which if you're not in one of the 4 pilot areas of the country like rugby, you may not have heard of yet. But if you think the attacks on benefits have been bad so far, you wait until universal credit is rolled out across the whole country. Comrades from DPAC will know about it themselves because it's hitting disabled people even more than anybody else. It is an absolute disgrace. The plan is for virtually everybody on benefits to be moved off their present benefit onto this new universal credit. The reason being is to save £2 billion by the government's own admission. And how do you save money from benefits? Well, we all know how you save money. You boot people off the dole into non-existent jobs or low-paid jobs. We are finding example after example in rugby from the work we're doing outside the job centre every week, where people are suffering tremendous hardship as a result of universal credit. And we need to link up the campaign, which we will be doing. I'm obviously in touch with DPAC nationally anyway, but we need to link all this up together because that is the next stage of the battle. On tonight's meeting, excellent meeting, excellent contributions from everybody on the platform. The one question that hasn't been answered, particularly by Owen Jones or anybody from the platform, is how you achieve even the limited number of reforms that Owen himself accounted for in his 9-point manifesto. No mention at all. It's all very well having wonderful policies, but you have to have a political strategy to deliver those policies and or a trade union strategy to deliver those policies. And sadly, that was lacking. And I'm not saying that TUSC, the Trade Union and Socialist Coalition, that Dave Nellis and others have mentioned, is necessarily the answer, nor am I saying that Left Unity that I've joined recently is necessarily the answer. What I do know is that we've got a plethora of organisations on the left, all purporting to represent the anti-cuts movement. There was a famous weekend 18 months ago when 6 different anti-cuts groups had their national meetings within 48 hours of each other. Now, brothers and sisters, that is nonsense. We need one united party of the left, and I want to see a strategy coming out of the People's Assembly, coming out of everything else as well, that leads to that. Divided, we fall. United, we stand a chance. Thank you, Joe.
Jane, thank you very much for the invitation. For those who don't know me, my name is David Skinner. I think I may be in a slight minority here tonight because I'm a Conservative councillor. And and I've come along to this, and I admire very much the sincerity. If I could say the things with which I agree, I think HS2 is a potential disaster. I agree with everything that was said. I've done everything I can to bring home to government ministers that it's a disaster, in particular because I was a Foreign Service officer and received endless bomb threats, among other things. I think it is wide open to terrorist attack. It seems to me such an obvious target. The other issues about the NHS, I spent pretty much the whole of September in University Hospital in Walsgrove. I thought they were quite magnificent. I have nothing but utter respect. On the things where, with the greatest respect, Jane, we disagree, or let me finish off where we agree, the behaviour of many people in the international financial circles was an utter disgrace. For people to be claiming bonuses of $1 million when so many people are in need is appalling, and I don't know how they can look themselves in the face, frankly. However, against that, just to finish off, where we, with the greatest respect, disagree, is that everyone, I think, knows that the government is borrowing a great deal of money. A large, I think it's something like 20% of all government money goes to paying off debts. Self-evidently, nobody wants cuts. Everybody wants more provision of all sorts of benefits. But at the moment, until the government's policies can work their way through and until the world economic situation begins to improve considerably, then only any other money will come out of further borrowing, which means further debts, which means the greater proportion. There's several other things I could say, Jane, but could I just say, it's been marvellous to listen to you all, but I don't expect a standing ovation. Thank you very much.
Hi, David Kersey, I'm a branch officer for Unison. I'm also an active member of the Against Fascism. I'm going to talk about racism briefly, so if there's any police officers in the room, you might want to take notebooks out. Right, I just want to mention a couple of things. Firstly, we've had a discussion about divide and rule and the need to not kick down but to kick up, and that's why when Councillor Skinner, you talk about debt, well, let's talk about corporation tax, and let's talk about the people who are bleeding the wealth in this country dry, and it's not people in this room, it's people at the top. But in saying that, we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful that we don't allow ourselves to fall into the trap of the politics of divide and rule. And I just want to say there's one thing that hasn't been mentioned today. We've mentioned a lot about Coventry and what we should be proud of. There's another thing I think we should all be proud of in Coventry, and that is this. I think we are the biggest city in this country where the English Defence League have not marched, and the fascists who tried to build on the politics of fear and the politics of intimidation have not taken a hold. And that is thanks to people in this room, people outside this room, and the hundreds of people in this city, black, white, Asian, Hindu, Muslim, Jew, Christian, no religion, who've marched and united together and said no to the EDL, and we have to continue to say that to them and to any cancerous offshoot that comes out of that organisation. But I think the other thing I want to say is also that we should remember people who come to this country are not victims. People who come to this country as migrants and come in are often the people who are in the vanguard and in the leadership of a fight back. Anyone who knows the history of the working class in this country knows that it's people who are Jewish, it's people who are Asian, know about the Greenwich dispute and the traditions of that. That's why I've got a very practical appeal I want to make for a group of workers in my union, Unison, and that's a group of workers at SOAS, which is the School of Oriental and African Studies, mainly Latin American workers, and they have taken up a fight for decent terms and conditions, and it's strikes like this that could be the start of a wave of resistance in this country, and we have to celebrate that. And I'd ask everyone in this room, there should be one on your table if it's falling on the floor, please pick it up, take it back into your workplace and get it filled in. Black and white, unite, we can be strong, let's not let those who want to divide and rule take hold. Stop the fascists, come on March 22nd, and stop racism.
I'd just like to start by saying that I'm a communist, so my party actually calls for a centrally planned socialist system where the working class own the means of production, distribution and exchange as a minimum towards a communist system and society. You know, we characterise this system as an inherent flaw in the capitalist system. It has always been there, it will always be there until we bury this system. Karl Marx said, capitalism creates its own grave diggers. So we need to start thinking about how we're going to bury this system. It will not just collapse of its own accord. It's going to have to be destroyed. Now, as a minimum towards that, we have to start looking at forms of civil disobedience. To bring the capitalist juggernaut to a standstill, we have to look at how we can make their system unworkable. Without workers to squeeze the relative surplus value from the workers which the capitalists are dependent upon for their rotten class system to survive, without the labour hands, without us to help them to run their rotten class system, it would ground to a halt. As simple as that. My party has called for workers during the anti-war movement not to spread the poisonous propaganda, not to produce the armaments that kill and to distribute them. And we also need to look at translating that to the public sector, to the public services, be they housing, the welfare benefits office, wherever. You know, we need to make their system unworkable as a minimum towards destroying this system. You can close me up whenever.
I will do.
Yeah.
President, 1 more minute.
You know, with all due respect, I haven't detected from this People's Assembly how this is going to translate into the most logical question, and that is going to be the conquest of political power by the working class. You know, capitalism has to be overthrown. The purely narrow, you know, labour and trade union politics are now becoming less and less workable. It's not that the capitalists perhaps don't want to give us any more sops or concessions. The simple fact of the matter is, the anarchic law of their crisis-ridden system is rendering that less and less possible. You know, this system is outside the control. It's like some Frankenstein's creation. It's outside the control of the capitalists. To actually control it, it is leading them along by the nose. No, that's no defence for the capitalists, but it does at least give us some idea of where we need to start to address what is fundamentally wrong. And that is, get rid of imperialism, get rid of capitalism. You know, it's had its day. And I think I'll rest my case. Thank you.
I can see people are restless and should be nearly at the end of this meeting, so I'll be very brief. My name is Patrick Conlon. I'm the branch secretary of Nottingham Trent University UCU. So yes, I live in Coventry and I commute to Nottingham. I've got the opposite problem of Owen Jones. I'm actually 27 years old, but my commuting, my hard work has somewhat aged me surely. As I say, I'll be brief. First, I think we must congratulate the People's Assembly and Owen Jones. It was a brilliant meeting, and they managed to not only unite us, but also unite us in our resolve to do something about this austerity. Yes, there have been all sorts of questions recently about what is to be done, and I think we can answer that quite simply. At Nottingham Trent University, along with other universities, we've been on strike recently, on five-day strike. It's not quite true. 3 of those days were 2-hour strikes, but our employer deducted a whole day's pay for those 2-hour strikes for partial performance. This is an employer who has a vice-chancellor who has just given himself a pay rise. Note, we're asking for a pay rise. He gives himself a pay rise of 6.8%, giving him a basic £321,000 a year, whilst, of course, making students pay £9,000 a year in fees. It's absolutely disgusting. But my point really is, So we've been striking, and really the way forward in terms of what is to be done is for all to be on strike. Pay is a big issue. Local government workers, public sector workers have had a real terms cut in wages of something like 18%. Ours is a real terms cut of about 13%. 5 years we've suffered this austerity and we've kind of taken it. Owen said there's been a little bit of recovery in the economy, a small recovery. Well, it's time for them to pay up. We have to unite in strike action. By the way, on the 26th of March, we should all be out with the teachers. We should all be out on strike. I spent a long time as a branch secretary of the union putting pressure on my union leadership to call us out on strike. I urge you to all do the same thing. We should all be on strike together. Thank you very much.
I hope you'll forgive me for being here, because I'm a Londoner, and that's why I'm here. I'm fascinated to see how socialist people are in Coventry. It's a great pleasure. I come from a rich London borough with plenty of poor people in it, and a very left-wing MP for whom I'm very grateful. Anyway, it's awfully cheering to know that all over the country there are plenty of socialist people like us. And I hope you feel, I mean, I live within a mile of the famous city of London with all its rich men. I can tell you there are plenty of people who aren't as well. Now it's almost International Women's Day, so I hope all you women are going to speak up yourselves. We haven't got to equality yet, so we still need your voices to sing up. The other thing I'd like to say as an outsider from Coventry is, I don't know if you know how admired you are for your pacifist stand after the last war. Instead of talking about vengeance, which if you've been listening to the history on television of the First World War, it was vengeance that led to the succession of the Kaiser by Hitler. And your stand for forgiveness, knowing that there are plenty of working class people in the other countries as well as ours, that we should not be contemplating another war, which is, as usual, about power and economics. Don't tell me there isn't electricity and gas are one motivation for Europe standing up for Ukrainians. How many people here know anything about the history of Ukraine? I don't think it's from humanitarian causes. I think it's because Europe wants the oil and gas, which will depend on our being allies. There's one more thing I want to say, and that is thank you for the solidarity. I'm 93 years old, so I was conscientious objector during the last war, and I would like to know, it's very comforting to know that there are plenty of people with pacifist ideas who would prefer that money spent on all the military organisation and processions this year would be better spent on welfare.
This meeting. I'd like to thank you for your patience. You're the ones that can claim at the People's Assembly meeting you were the last ones to leave the room. I'd just like to say, because I know there were a few disappointed people, I couldn't get everybody in, but I'm really proud that I've got 20 people in tonight to speak from the floor, as well as the fantastic speakers in 2 hours. So I think that, you know, I'm really proud of that you've had your say tonight. We haven't all agreed. We will go out of this room tonight and maybe go to the pub or whatever and carry on that conversation. But I hope that tonight what unites us is that we're not going to take this anymore, and we are going to fight back in whatever way we can, and in whatever group we are in, that we are going to work together to fight austerity. Now, you signed up, you'll be hearing about things that are going on over the next couple of months. There's a lot going on in both Coventry and Warwickshire, so please look out for that. Don't be shy to get involved, because the more people that are involved in the bedroom tax campaign, the youth fight for jobs, the Hope Not Hate demonstration in London, if you can get on that, there's a coach going down for that. All of these events that are taking place, the more people that get involved, that's the bigger, louder message to this government and to whoever else has control over our budgets and that we're not taking it anymore. So thank you for your attendance. And, I don't know which pub we're all trooping to. I'm sure somebody's made a decision about that tonight. But pat yourselves on the back for a really good night. So thank you.